Ooh, bear with me here, guys. I may actually be about a minute late setting up. Okay, let me grab a drink and we'll do this. Sorry about that, guys. I got a lot of things going today, and we're going to run a little bit of a short session, make up for it tomorrow. We're going to run 2 hours tonight, then we'll do 4 plus tomorrow, and the plus is yet to be determined. So let's jump right into where we left off yesterday. Let me get the starter kit up and launched here. Damn right it's happening. It's not just happening today, it's happening over and over again. 38 days. We'll finish up with a 24-hour live stream on the big day in November. Alright, so when we left off, we had just tunneled our dwarves in, started up our first couple of rooms, discussed how the pancake stack design needs to be monitored so you don't run into pathfinding issues with your miners running back and forth between 27 different floors trying to mine them all at once. And I was so disjointed yesterday that I probably rambled through an hour and a half of explanation that made no sense on anything. I think that's about where we left off in it. We did, however, get our dwarves bunkered in inside a small wooden hut, because we are at war with the local necromancer tower, apparently. So we're all walled in and safe at the moment. We do have to get grazing area up for the animals that need to graze, or get them butchered off, because they're not going to eat if they don't have something to eat, and this stone floor is not going to provide them any grazing material. So we're going to go down a few floors to figure out where we're going to put our kitchens. I'll need to put our farms in. So give me a second when I do this, and I'll explain what I've done after I've finished, but there's a lot of things I'm going to do here all at once. Bear with me. All right, so now that I've finished all that rigmarole, let me explain what the hell I was doing there. First off, we've slapped down 4 farm plots. That'll enable us to get our dwarves fed. This terrain, as we discovered last night, is made out of sand here, which is a growing material. We don't need to irrigate this in any way. If your particular fortress happens to be stone in this area where you want to build your farms, you have to run water over that surface at least once to muddy it before you can farm. So that's one of the reasons why I like to embark in an area with at least some soil. Even a single layer will work as long as you're careful about trees. So last night we left a layer blank here at the top intentionally, initially, to stop any tree growth that may occur above us from having the ability to punch holes in our fortress. So a word needs to be said here about one of the particular weaknesses of this vertical stack design, and that is if you have a falling tree limb and it hits the ground, direct, or a boulder or something else that falls from height other than maybe a body, and it falls directly above the fortress, and it's not solid like this, if instead it's hollow underneath, it's just layer after layer of hollow space, what happens is it punches through the ceiling here, ends up in your fortress, and then just keeps punching through floor after floor after floor until it hits something solid. It could punch through your stairwells, it could punch through your bedrooms, it doesn't matter. As long as it's not a solid wall as it passes through going from top to bottom, it keeps punching holes in floors. To avoid that, normally what I would do is, say for example, imagine we had a keep around the outside of where our internal fortress is here. I would simply put a stockpile above that that's set to collect nothing. Stockpiles act like buildings. They prevent trees from growing, so you end up with no trees growing inside your fortress, and the trees that are outside are growing too far away to have their felled limbs fall through your ceiling. And at some point we'll look at doing that. But in the meantime, we've left this Z layer unmined, so that if a tree limb falls above us, it hits this as a solid wall and it doesn't go any further for now. Later on, if we need to use that space for additional farms, because it's probably going to be soil as well, we can do so. Then going down, we've got a few empty floors, and we've dug our stairwell all the way down to Z minus 15 or 16, which we know is safe. We've put at least 16 levels of space between us and the caves. So now we can go back up and start talking about what we do with these floors. So we've got plants here. I need to have a stockpile here that's going to hold food. Let's see, we'll allow all food except prepared food, because this is where our raw food is going to be stockpiled. Now we'll go down a floor, and we'll do another stockpile. And this is just temporary to get us a working main stockpile for booze. When we get a tavern, we'll need a stockpile closer to that. When we have a dining hall, we'll need a stockpile closer to that, and so forth. But those stockpiles will be relatively small by comparison, with the intention that the dwarves aren't meandering through a giant empty stockpile warehouse, but are instead in the dining hall and just happen to have a few barrels on hand. Now we also need to get mugs up and running. We don't have, since we've spent so much time burrowing ourselves in, we didn't really get any stonecrafts built. Our dwarves are drinking out of barrels like savages. It's not going to work. To get around that, we'll need to create a crafts dwarfs workshop. And they can work out of stone, so we've got a little stone laying around here on the ground. That's all we'll need. We'll just use the local material on hand, since we're not planning on this being a long-term affair here. And our crafts dwarf will come along and do his part. Now, got our stockpile there. We'll go down a level. That's our drink stockpile, our main drink stockpile. And then right here we'll do kitchens and stills, which is where all food production will be. So that way, we're generating our plants up top. They're moving into a plant stockpile. We're generating our food, our butchery products will probably be up here too, off of little wing rooms for each type. So we'll have eggs in one room, and we'll have meat in another, and wool production in a third, and then the processing facilities in a fourth. So if they need to shear a sheep, they just go to the sheep pen, shear the sheep, and away they go. If they need to butcher a hog, they go into the pig pen and get rid of the hog and bring it back. So let's see. And this will be our kittens and our stills then. Okay. And as I said last night, the reason we're doing these pancake stack designs is because they're more efficient in terms of dwarven pathfinding. Long term, you want to cut that down as much as possible. Are we failing? Oh, that's right. The Crafts Dwarf Workshop's probably got all kinds of critters standing on it. This is in our main meeting area, so all our peahens and our cows and our dogs are all swarming around this area at the moment. Need our Crafts Dwarf to come along and do his bit again. But I think he's mining. So we'll take him off that. And he's complaining he can't dig because he lost his pick. He lost his pick because he dropped it. He dropped it because we told him to. You wouldn't see that message if he was not mining at the time he was told to stop. Okay, so build, workshop, kitchen. And we're not worried too much right now about the quality of the material used in our workshops. We're just going to use what's on hand. And we're going to put a couple stills in, because we need to start working on getting some booze plants and booze ready. Salt there. Okay, now that gets us our primary food production our primary food production area. We'll go down one floor and we'll stick a stockpile here for prepared food. And this will be where our main, meal stockpile will be. Now, in prior years, I would have used a larger circle, something on the diameter 15 rather than a... Freely exchange words as they go past, and keeping them in smaller areas helps. So when we get down to where our dining area is, although it will be smaller, we will have to more richly appoint it, and our dwarves will be more likely to chat if they're in it because they are closer together, kind of pushing them into a space, basically. And on a floor below this, let's see. So we've gotten food. Let's do carpentry. Would have to talk to the surface, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. So we'll go ahead and mine out a second one. And I'll demonstrate kind of the problem I was talking about yesterday. These dwarves here will start going back and forth usually between floors at some point, deciding that they don't quite want to finish this one before they start on the next one. Oh, we're going to prove me wrong today, are you boys? Okay. See what you're doing there. And they leave one block behind. Thanks, boys. Good job. Alright, so we've got our food production. Need to put in carpentry. And we've got a temporary one over there in the little hut we built originally, but this is going to be a little more long-term here. And other than the bowyer and the carpenter, we won't bother to put anything else in here for right now. Later on, we'll put some small wings off to the side to handle some of the less common crafts like ashery stuff where we're burning wood, or the wood furnace where we're burning wood. They'll still need to feed off that same stockpile, but those are less common and we won't use them as much. And we can put all our wood in that pile. Let me think for a second. We've got... We can put our temporary forges back up here. Hi, guys. Welcome aboard. Oh, and as I recall, though, Clinidev, don't you want to have the first wax worker? Well, this isn't really a challenge. This is new player does curves. Circles are easy. Everybody can do circles with dig circle. All right, first wax worker's yours, boss. Did I ever tell you I was going to take up beekeeping? I can't keep them at my house, though. The local homeowners association won't allow it because they're livestock. A herbalist or a brewer? Well, to be fair, that's the state's definition. So, you know, I can't fault them. If you want an herbalist or a brewer, you're probably going to need to get one of our migrants. And so here's how this works. If you want a dwarf named after you, I will happily do it. But you need to donate $10 to charity. If you want one of my starting 7 named after you, you'll have to donate $25 to charity. But here's the bonus. If you do it today, every day for the remainder of the 38-day event, I will name a dwarf after that same name in every fort I run. If the bees move in freely, it's called an infestation. And if you don't treat that, the Homeowners Association will put a lien on your house to charge you for the fee that they pay to have somebody come out and remove it for you. Something about an attractive nuisance, I'm pretty sure. Alright, so we're going to put up our forges and our smelters. We can put up a smelter. Oops. Put up our smelter now. But we will have to wait a little while on the forge because we still have to take down the old one and harvest the anvil that we left in it. Now, we did bring us some sand, so we can also throw up a glass furnace to make some glass items for export. Glass is really easy to make things out of. It produces a wide variety of items, and they have reasonably good value out of the gate. The downside is, just like metalsmithing, it's going to need some source of fuel if you're not relying on magma. So we're going to use up some of those logs we harvested on the surface, or that brought with us, in order to power our furnace here, no problem. You can use charcoal. We have coke. We have some coke, but I'm using the coke to make our bronze, and we may not have enough left over to do glasswares for fun. So we may end up using some wood-burnt charcoal. Now, once we're done, we'll put our forge in here as well. We could throw up a kiln, but I'm a whole lot less worried about pottery at the moment. Despite my personal, pleasure in the craft, I'm not really sure I want to worry about it right now. It's not essential to getting our fortress up and running. It's not as versatile as glass. Alas, alas. We'll put in a crafts dwarf's workshop here and go down one more and throw in the masons. We do have bronze. I brought us some copper and tetrahedrite. We didn't have any copper ores. We had to take tetra, which is a shame. It forced us to give up some of our plump helmets for meat and fish instead. Speaking of which, I should check and see how we're doing on food. Make sure nobody's eating it all while I wasn't looking. So if you want to do extra barrels, you could do milk. That's cheaper than wine or ale by 1 point each, right? I mean, you're getting more out of each. And you can take a wider variety. So if you want free barrels, milk is a good way to go. You have to... I don't know if it'll actually freeze in the barrels or not, but the easiest way to deal with it would simply be to start making cheese right away. And you could do that. It's an easy way to get lots and lots of barrels for free right up front. But if you have a Craftsdwarf's workshop, and we do, and you have some free stone laying around, and we do, then you're going to end up making pots pretty quick, and we will. So we can set those in right now if we wanted. I had the Craftsdwarf's workshop up here, but it turns out they've mined it out quick enough I didn't need to worry about it. Because we're going to put in our forges, our temporary forges, and our temporary smelters, put in our Craftsdwarf's workshops, and go down one more for masons. Actually, back that up and reverse it. We'll do the masons here and the Craftsdwarf's workshops down one further, and I'll explain why. Our Craftsdwarfs are going to be producing a lot of trade-type items, things that our dwarves may want to claim for themselves, but which also are used for trade goods. So, in a lot of cases, we will want to be able to... I've got to get our temporary beds up and running because I still didn't do that yet either, did I? Started on that last night and stopped. Got interrupted. Okay, so let's get that started. Oh, we already got moved downstairs. We don't want to do that after all. In fact, I can take that other one apart now. That's better. Let's do that. And we no longer need this bunker at all, so I probably shouldn't have bothered with it. It was a lot of work for nothing, but that's okay. We may want to put to use later on quarantining migrants or something. Now, our first dormitory will also double as our eventual hospital, so let's go ahead and think about that for a minute. We've got our mason, our forges, masons, Craftsdwarf. Sorry, don't want that smooth. I want it removed. If you don't want to have your milk freeze, my suggestion would be to get it underground as fast as possible, Hermit. And unfortunately, the only way you're going to be able to do that at Embark is to drop the wagon. You're not going to be able to use the dump trick because you're going to lose the milk on the ground if you do. Oh, right, we got to deal with those guys too. So, remember earlier when I said we had that food production floor? Yep, time to put it to use. Now, for right now, I don't really care who does these things as long as they get done. And we've got some idlers around once these workshops are built, so somebody will take care of it, which is what I need. So let's go into animals for a moment. Let's do... a quick whack on those. And we'll have to build us a butcher's workshop upstairs. dig out a little...
I can't do it.
Oh, somebody else's ore or stone is on the spot and they haven't been able to build it yet because the brewery is needing it. Silly, silly, silly. Built stills too. So what's happened there is the kitchen has a rock laying on top of it. The rock is needed for the still, and nobody's building the still yet.
Every other day, there's a new migrant saying, I'm here to work, I make cheese, or I grind down jams, or I milk things. Well, how many milkers do you think we need here, huh? How many? Do you see anything that can be milked here? Honestly.
Auto labor? I don't use auto labor, Trumpet Dog. I never have. I poked at it once, and it was flipping. There's a way to use it to set it up with rolls, and some people swear by it. But I guess maybe I'm just too much of a control freak to let go of my ants. I mean, dwarves. I mean, I've seen people use it. You might as well shut Dwarf Therapist off if you're going to use it as anything other than just a read, and only in a moment. It seemed to me that with auto labor out of the box, I ended up with a lot of dwarves who were doing jobs that weren't theirs, simply because the guy who was there was doing some job that wasn't his over and over again. Now, that's been a long time ago, and I think you're supposed to set up some kind of roles or something for it, so don't take my experience as gospel, but I can't comment on using it much beyond that. Yes, we have an architect when we embark, Hermit. That's part of our embark settings. You can thank Clinidev for our current embark profile. We made a few tweaks to it because of where we're embarking and how we're embarking, but for the most part, it's as it was. For a new player who doesn't know to turn on architecture when they're building their first smelter, that's a really nice thing to have. Oh, right, migrants. That's what I was getting ready to do. See, you guys got me monologuing again. All right, so we've sorted our dwarves by migration wave, and all of our first 7 are in the first migration wave. Imagine that. When we read the next set, though, it brings in the next set of dwarves that are actually coming in. Looks like we're getting a big pile of fish cleaners. Yay! Frontline infantry, frontline infantry, frontline infantry. One of them knows how to work a pair of scissors. How about that? Frontline infantry. So if you're curious what they're good at, I guess we can come over here and take a look. They're good at exactly what they've been doing. Fish cleaning. The shear is good at shear. See, this is when you start talking about roles, here's the issue you're going to have with looking at roles for dwarves. Let's say I want to know what these guys are good at. Anything they might conceivably be good at that they haven't done is going to be in the mid-50s. Like these stuff here, they're reasonably good at these jobs. They're not necessarily the greatest, but they're workable. The problem is that it also takes into consideration the skill of the dwarf. So this guy who's been doing some gelding, his gelding, he says he's a whole lot better than, everything else. So when you look at the roles view in Dwarf Therapist, you need to take into consideration that if you don't want these guys to be fish cleaning, you need to realize that their skill is what's making them weighted so heavily this way. It even tells you at the top right up here, what the weighting is. So our skill is weighted the same as our endurance, kinesthetic, sense, and agility, which encourages these guys to rate highly in the things they're already good at. Oh, I'm not sure of the exact breakdown, Hermit. I've never looked at it quite that closely. I apologize. Enough to know how it works at a basic level is all I needed to know how to deal with it. That's all I've needed. If you're really wanting to hyper-optimize your roles, if you really want to dive down into the efficiency rabbit hole, as it were, then I encourage you to start experimenting. But I'm not going to be that guy tonight, and I don't really want to be that guy long term. I do a little bit of optimization because the engineer urge in me, if you will, kind of demands it of me. But I'm not going to claim that what we're doing is necessarily the most hyper-optimized way you can do it. If you're looking for the optimum way to play Dwarf Fortress, I'm not giving it to you. So it looks like they're pretty good at some social skills. We've got a potential metal crafter. Maybe a weaponsmith. Maybe an armor smith. We could take a look at, let's see, what else we got here. This guy would make a decent cook, and we kind of need one. Put this guy out to do an herbalism and have him start picking some herbs for us and hopefully get some rope reed. Not much in the, I mean, no farmers, no decent farmers here. You guys must be the layboutist of layboutists. Envious, constantly ablaze with lust. Nice. Can't imagine she's going to cause any problems. Okay, so let's look at our starting 7. Satisfied at work, euphoric inebriation, got to communicate with the deity. Still pissed about sleeping on a floor. Yeah, I'm good with that. I know about the floor. Annoyed about the drinks with no mug. Everybody got to commune with their deity. That's working for me. Okay. Annoyed at the lack of chairs. Yeah, I'm aware. And had to sleep in the grass and the rocks. Okay, so we're doing pretty good, other than we still have to get a dining room up, some dormitories, and a more permanent temple would be some nice as well. Mugs is right around the corner, so we won't have to worry about those. Dreams of mastering a skill. Well, good news. You probably will if you're in our starting 7. A lot of dreams of family and, values martial prowess. Finds nature somewhat disturbing, hates freedom. Wow. No mugs, sleeping in the grass, saw vermin, had an argument, no chairs. So, dining room, mugs. And we are almost deep enough to do where I'd put the dining room. Akura Kira Kamo. Come on, guys, sing along. I probably should. My wife will kill me. So let's take a look at what we've done in terms of workshops, see what we still need here. We still need to put our craft stores workshops in. We still need to get tannery and leatherworking running. Metalsmith, jeweler. Okay, and clothing. The rest is all pretty minor for the most part. Okay. Three floors ought to be enough. Okay, so let's go back up to the top of that one we just finished digging out. There's our masons. Here's our crafts dwarves. And here's what I was talking about. If you start digging out more than one floor, they start bouncing between floors rather than finishing any given one. It'll take them a little longer to get done this way.
All the fish are gone.
Our fisherman we've let kind of go nuts here. He's probably not going to catch anything, but we'll let him fish in a few ponds, see if he can scrounge anything up. Let's go take a look and see where he is. See, I don't see any fish laying around the bank here. My guess is he's not going to get any up in any of these places. But maybe he'll get lucky. And I don't really need him right this second anyway. We never did get our grower working, did we? Our farms need to be planted. Alright, so let's go ahead and get some of these guys assigned to things we're going to need. We don't currently have a farmer, so let's get that done first. We said one of our guys was not good for that, but it doesn't matter. I have to have at least one. So what we're going to do is we're going to set them up to do kitchen work and farming. I've got two guys who'd be decent cooks. We'll commit them for now. And they'll come along and get our farm plots constructed. Give me a second here. I'm setting my guys up into their proper profession names here. And we'll let our... Actually, I'll tell you what, we'll just take these guys off. Put those guys to work doing mining. do we have left? Is that everybody now? Okay, it is. Let's go back and look at those miners and see if they had anything they might be good at. Got one guy we put in as a knacker. Was he the best choice? No, evidently not. And right now we need somebody to do cooking and brewing, so our knacker will do that when we're not doing something else. Dreams of mastering a skill. I think we'll be okay there. Just want to make sure she doesn't have something she does not really value skills related to fighting. Good, you're not going to. Doesn't really care about nature one way or another. Well, that's unfortunate because you're going to do a little cooking, and after that you can butcher your nuts off. We're good. Okay, she's fine. Well, she'll be going to revolt on us because she's cooking occasionally. Let's see. Does this guy object to... Finds the pursuit of knowledge to be a waste of effort. Okay, dude, no problem. Scatterbrain, stingy with resources, overinflated sense of self-worth. Okay. Don't see anything there that's going to stop him from being a farmer. Especially since I'd really rather keep him away from other people, seeing as how he likes to screw with everybody. Overinflated self of sense worth and doesn't mind a little discord, so he runs around bragging and doesn't mind arguing about it. Because he doesn't get angry, but everybody else does. Fun. You know, one of these days I'll stop closing that window. Stone crafters don't need to cooperate, so that works fine by me. Dreams of creating work of art, no problem. He's a smith, so we're okay. Finds nature somewhat disturbing. Is moved by art and natural beauty. Moved by art and natural beauty. Finds nature somewhat disturbing. Nature. Nature. Party animal. Okay. This guy is never going to have to worry about being put off by a family in nature ever. Easily falls in love or develops positive feelings. Finds nature disturbing, hates romance, is put off by family. This guy needs to unwind a little. Wants shit to go wrong, dreams of having a family. Mm-hmm. Our mechanic here does not see the value of knowledge of attainment as important. Attainment of knowledge is important. Wow. Mechanical engineer that doesn't want to know anything. Okay, right on. Needing carpenter, so we'll have him do that in the meantime. I have stonework taken care of. I'll get some bows together and bolts together so that we have ranged weapons. Got our doctor picked out, at least for now. Got a farmer running. Smiths. We never did get an herbalist. You're about the best choice we've got right now. So we'll use you. Let's see what else we need here. I think we're pretty good otherwise. Fishing may come important later when we open up the caverns and start having some water in the caves, but right now we're just not going to take advantage of it. There's nothing really to fish at on the surface. See, this guy'd make a decent smith, but I think that's just knock on from him. I think that's just knock on from his engraving skill, having raised his attributes in that area. Let's see. This guy would be our good choice of appraiser and broker right here. Who is that? Our ceramics guy. Okay. I don't think I see anything else right now that we need to worry about right away. Okay, good. Means I can put away the spreadsheet for a minute. And now everybody's organized into their little castes, if you will. And we should get a farmer coming along here momentarily to do his farming stuff. Uh-huh. Where you at there, buddy? He's outside, isn't he? Sitting up in the rain. Shh. That's right, because we didn't actually open the gate for him, did we? Okay, and now the migrants will come swarming in through our little temporary gate here. All four of them. The other two may have already made it in. We may close the gate on midway. Okay, nobody else is coming in, so we're going to close the door back up. And this is really only our temporary defense until we can get something a little better up. Since we're automatically at war with our... Oops. Our fisherman is still out there doing fish. Let's get our pasture spaces done so we can get our animals out of that meeting space and get things butchered and tanned and what all. Alright, and now that we've done that, let's see, did I do something stupid last night like I think I remember doing? Yes, I did. Okay, so these should not have been up staircases because we still want to be able to go further down. That was dumb. think it'll let me do that. No, didn't figure. Okay. Since I dug these as upstairs cases and did not intend to, I now must remove them. And replace them. What's our miner doing? Praying? Sitting outside in the rain. What the hell are they all doing out there? The meeting area is indoor. Don't make me pull a burrow out, guys. Make me turn this burrow around. Want to check to make sure they hadn't actually butchered any animals yet. Let's get our farms up because they've now got them built. Now, give me a second to get this all built and I'll explain what I'm doing and why in just a moment. Okay, so we're going to have 4 seasons of plump helmets, 3 seasons of quarry bushes, a mixture of sweet pods and pigtails and cave wheat, and then just enough dimple cups to make it all run in terms of dye. In the winter, when the only other thing we can grow is plump helmets. Our farmers will come along and start planting, and that's fantastic, but we need to make sure we set an order here to make sure that only our farmers are harvesting crops, because the skill you gain for farming is primarily based on the plucking, and so you'll get dwarves with a bunch of dabblers if everybody is harvesting our crops. Now we'll have to keep an eye on this at first because our low skill farmer may not be able to keep up with his own planting. That is to say, he may plant more than he can actually pick. But we should be okay. Now we did just butcher our draft animals. Every embark gets 2 of these for free, and I like to butcher them fairly early for meat and leather and bones. But the problem is butchered stuff stinks. It rots. So we need to make sure we do something about that, and the do something about that means we build a garbage chute. And the way I like to build a garbage chute is I build a little small diagonal off the main corridor here with a channel on it at the end, and what'll happen is we'll get a dwarf come along and mine out that little garbage chute, hopefully soon here. Let's make sure he can't do anything else. It takes very little time for meat and items similar to it to rot, so we want to make sure we get rid of these guys, this stuff that will rot as fast as possible if we're not going to use it. This cartilage and nervous tissue, and we're not going to use the hair, let's be honest. Get rid of that. Some people use the skulls for totems. I'll keep this one for now, but usually I chuck them. Push the other one over here. Yeah, we did. Okay, so let's go down through this the same way. Cartilage isn't used for anything. Nervous tissue, hair, gone. And usually, like I said, I'd get rid of the skulls too. Probably the horns and hooves, wouldn't mess with them. Just more stuff I can mess with later when I'm ready to set up the industry. But for right now, I just chuck it in a hole and be done with it. Now, once they... Here he comes. mine that little spot out. Right there. Okay, now once he does that, we can we can create ourselves a little zone. And we make this a garbage dump. And what'll happen is the dwarves will come along. Let's clear this. Oops, clear the zone for a minute so you can kind of see what I'm putting at. And I'll point at what we're going to do here. The dwarves will come along to dump stuff. They'll move to this square, and because they're adjacent to this hole, they'll chuck it in the hole. Now that doesn't seem like it's impressive on its own, and it's not. But the rotting stink that is miasma can only move orthogonally, north, south, east, or west. It cannot move on a diagonal. So although this pit will stink to high hell, there is no way it can leak out because the only exit from this pit is diagonally. If we have to send someone into it later, it's a ramp at the bottom. It's only one level high. And people will just walk in and grab what they need and walk back out. If it starts to become a problem, sometimes our cats are really stupid and end up in the garbage chute getting clubbed by whatever refuse gets thrown down at them, then I can always put a door in at the bottom and at the top and mark out, prevent animals from getting in and so forth. But for right now, we're good. Okay, we've got our butchering done. Let's make sure somebody's doing some hauling here. There we go. Chuck that stuff. Make sure the food gets moved. Get the skins tanned. That's good, good, good. If the skins don't get tanned, they'll rot and they'll go to waste. That's wasting the leather as well as the problems it causes on its own. Okay, and there's food, wood, forges, masons, craft dwarves. Okay, remember we said we needed mugs? Let's solve that problem. We only have a few doors right now, so we can get away with doing this manually, and I'm going to come back and set up an order for it later, but probably not tonight. We'll rattle off about 20 of these, which will be enough for our first set of dwarves and probably our second migrant set. Where did he go, and where is he at? Oh, right, he's at the bottom. Good, good. Got to give him some diorite to actually build those staircases out of the hole he's in. There we go. And then we'll fill in the rest of the staircase. And we only had to do that because I was a dummy last night and made these upstairs cases too early. Typically, I wouldn't want these to be upstairs cases because I'm going to want this single shaft to go all the way down until we hit the first cavern level. Which hopefully will be before this level, but we'll see. We may have missed the first one and just blundered right into the second one, or maybe we missed all of them. We'll see. I suppose I could have reviewed this after I did the reveal demonstration last night to show people how the mineralogy of Dwarf Fortress is laid out. But I didn't bother to memorize what was below our fort. Pushing these first 10 pretty hard. We're going to have to slack off on them a bit here in a minute and give them some free time, because the problem is we're pushing them really hard at the start here to get ready. There's a few things that if we set them up very quickly at the early onset of a fortress, it makes it a whole lot simpler later on. And one of those is getting cave moss up and running, which is what we're working on right now. In order to do that, what we'll need to do is punch a hole from our fortress into one of the caverns below ground. Remember, when we were talking about setting up the world, I talked about if you got rid of all the caves, there'd be no underground cave moss. This is how that would then impact your fortress. Still no caves. See if the old dwarven radar can pick anything up here. There's a cave at 35. So there's definitely one down here a little further. Okay, so there's one there at... Yep, one right there. What's happening here is our farm plot, which we can then use as radar, allows us to sort of identify those areas which are open space. Anything marked with an X is open space. Now it's red, it's just solid. But when it changes colors, green lets me know that that's a flat surface, like a floor on this Z level. And the purple lets me know that it's open space with a hollow below it. So this is like an open space down to the next floor. And if I go down, I'll start to see different places where it will hit. So what we'll do is we'll dig down to about Z level 35, it looks like, and we'll make contact with the caverns. Somewhere down here, we should punch a hole into a cave. Now, once that happens, a couple of things will happen. We'll get a big announcement that will pause the game for us, which is good, because I don't want to have to miss it. And two, it will start growing cave moss on soil and muddy surfaces in our fortress. Now, initially, cave moss on muddy surfaces doesn't sound like a whole lot, but there's a trick to this. Cave moss on muddy surfaces, or cave moss on soil for that matter, is how you set up underground grazing area for your sheep, for your pigs. If you want to have an elephant farm underground, you're going to need cave moss. Alright, so our game pauses automatically when we punch a hole in the cave, so we can go up a bit here and figure out where we actually made the hole. Here, okay, so here's our staircase. And we'll go down a little, zoop, 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 and there's where we made our hole, right? See, we were going to go even further down than that. Alright, so go back up. It doesn't look like we're connected to anything here. So that's got to go away. These all have to be ups. Okay, so now what we do is we cancel all of these. We turn them into up staircases because this becomes the bottom of the staircase for now. We might use a hallway and move over to somewhere else and try to go down further. It looks like if you look, there's actually a stone pillar right here where my mouse pointer is. None of the levels hit this. If we had centered our fortress above this, we would have dived straight through this cavern layer and never even known it was there. Alright, so we'll go back up. We've converted our staircases to ups. Now, these have to be canceled. We don't want any dwarves coming down through into the caves to try and dig out staircases that we're not even going to use. Now, these two that they did finish, that made the holes into the level below, those have to be dug out and replaced. So once they get some of these upstairs cases done, like they have here, then we would dig them out. And be careful when you do this. The center staircase can be disconnected from things if you're not careful, depending on what else it's connected to. Our dwarves will come along. They'll punch out those things, leaving holes down to the bottom level. Not sure if that slate is the stuff at the bottom of the hole, so we want to make sure these get built, because otherwise they'll go, nope, can't reach the slate, not going to worry about it. Somebody coming along to build them? Nope, still inactive. Okay, let's give them a minute to work on that, and while they are working on that, let's start thinking about places to eat and drink. So I want to go down about 10 floors. There we go, 11 will do. Let's go one more for safety's sake. Okay. Okay, and that big pile of mining there is going to be a tavern. And our barracks. And we'll put our dining room here. Oh look, an axe dwarf is visiting. Good for him. I wish, by the way, I need to see if I can figure out how to do it. I wish the timer at the bottom left only showed the active time I've been playing. Because it really should only say about 4 hours currently, but it's marked since October 1st, so it's actually running the full clock. Let's see. He wants to reside here to eradicate monsters. Nah, we won't approve or deny it. We'll just let him sit there and hope. In the meantime, he can hang around and defend us. But since I don't have the tavern up, I'm not exactly sure why he wants to show up now. It's not like we're a well-marked tourist destination or anything, right? Okay, so we're going to turn planning mode on and build us some tables and chairs for our eventual dining room. Now, I don't actually have the tables and chairs constructed yet, so what I'm basically doing is I'm telling DF Hack to put in a any table goes here blueprint. So I don't care whether it's decorated, there's no material filter, I don't look quality, none of that. I'm just going ahead and using what it already gives me to create a dining room here. Oops. Put one in the wrong spot there. I have to go back and do it on the other side. Same thing, chair, turn planning mode on, put in all the chairs for all the tables. Now, when I tell my masons to build tables, first available will get placed. Chairs will get placed, same way. I don't have to worry about what where. If I want to come back later and engrave my dining room and build it into green gold or clear glass tables and clear glass chairs, all inlaid with gold and filigree and adamantine spikes, I could do that and replace all this stuff later. But for right now, it gets our dining room up and running right away. So let's go back upstairs to our masons. Hey, Clinidev, if you're paying attention, there's your feature request for 2021. We need to figure out how to get the placement planning mode to interact with the workshop queues to request the furniture we need for the blueprints we've already placed. While I'm dreaming, I'd like a pony. Now, off the tavern, we'll build a public library and a public temple, but we won't keep anything valuable in either place. Our public library will be a place where you can write books, but they immediately become confiscated by our fortress and moved into the private library where nobody but residents is allowed to go. And to enter the fortress requires that every visitor pass through the barracks, meaning that all the people we have training at any given moment are always on duty, always defending. So, if you're an invader from outside the fortress, you have to come through the tavern with the assorted monster slayers and guards that might be there, pass through that, presumably killing everyone, good luck, pass through that into our barracks, deal with our trained military, pass through that, deal with the array of traps we're going to have up, and then you might get to the fortress where we'll have the library. So once we start archiving our artifacts, for example, in display cases, this corridor right here will start to get really hot among invaders. So upstairs on floor 2, we will dig ourselves a little hole here, and we will actually create ourselves a drowning pit trap where we will flood it as needed to deal with any invaders. Be easier to do it lower. I don't think I have a river on this one, do I? Ooh, that might be a problem. I have to redesign our entrance a little bit. Yeah, these aren't going to get it done, and I don't want to build a pump stack. Okay, so forget that idea. Let's redesign it. Oops, a little more than I wanted to take out there. Sorry, I had to size that one up. Okay, so let's talk about the redesign. The rework of the rework of the rework. Okay. So they're still going to pass through the tavern. They're still going to pass through barracks. That stuff hasn't changed any. And here's where our depot will be here in just a moment, once our miners get unbusy. We want to put everybody back on mining detail here for a moment to get this done quick. Starting to get middle of summerish, and that's a little late. I think I had this done before and forgot about it, so we're good there. Good, good. Keep in mind there is no reason for anyone not permanently residing in our fortress to pass by this little threshold right here. Everything past that is dwarves only. Not just dwarves, but dwarves in our fortress only.
The time for autumn has come.
Okay. Dug out a little too much there. I wanted to have doors on both sides of the barracks. Hang out, see the sights, possibly defend our fortress against a necromancer invasion. I promise, we are not totally abusing your labor with no intention of actually allowing you to reside in our fortress permanently. We would never do that to you. That'll get us enough space to put our depot in. And depending on how fast we're going, we may actually have to put a temporary depot on the surface if we want to take advantage of the wagons. But we can take advantage of the caravan just by having a depot up. Cruel? Weren't you the guy complaining the other day when I wasn't putting my vampires to use because I simply crushed them under a bridge on sight? Cruel? I never promised him entrance to my fortress. I never invited him to come pay us a visit. Never promised him we'd accept his labor. He's welcome to petition. We're welcome to deny it.
There's no place for the merchants to unload their goods.
That's a little earlier than I was hoping for, but that's okay. We'll throw this together real fast with some gabbro here. Had to make sure our architect was actually on the way to build it for us. Now this long, straight corridor, what we'll do is we will... see what's going on here. Okay, we want to get some we will take all the metal bars they can bring us, which won't be very many because apparently there's a cap on how many it allows the caravan to pack. We want all the small cut gems they can send us. We can encrust those into items and bring them back later. Now our civilization doesn't have some of these things. Then they won't give them to us, but if they do, then we'll get them. Seeds, we can use those to expand our farming a little bit. Pets. Love to bring pets on board just for the purpose of butchering the shit out of them. Now, I will probably go back and remove some of these because I don't really care about most of them for purposes of having them. And now that I'm thinking about it, this is the first season, so we don't really want all of them. We really want to focus on the ones we're going to use for our industry rather than the ones we're going to use just as a backdoor way to bring more meat. So let's bring us in some sheep because we don't have a source of wool on site yet. So we'll get some ewes and rams, pigs, sows and boars. Oops, sows and boars. Don't need the nanny goat. We'll order some additional blue peahen and blue peacocks. Mostly blue peahen. We don't need a whole lot of blue peacocks, just a few to get us started. If you are a patient person, I didn't cover it yesterday, now that I'm thinking about it. If you're a patient person and you're willing to wait for your egg and meat industry to turn over a little bit, turkeys are technically the best bird as long as you're willing to tolerate the 2-year growth cycle. They don't grow up as fast as blue peahen, they don't grow up as fast as guinea hens, but they produce more meat than either one and comparable eggs. So, in terms of raw production, turkeys are easily the far and away the most productive bird on average. The point still stands. Well, I'll let you in on the secret of how I run my fortress, guys, boys and girls. This is real simple. It's I am the cruelest, most painful overseer they could possibly imagine. Obedience is not merely necessary and encouraged; it is absolutely demanded on pain of unending suffering. I have been known to put people inside a box, wall the box up, and drop it into magma. Sometimes they survive long enough to report on the magma sea. Now, we do want to bring some silk thread. We want to grab some plant thread because we may not have our crops up and running just that early. Now, the reason we're taking thread again is because we want to bring raw materials are cheaper. Where is it? Plant thread. There it is. That wouldn't hurt to have some cave spider silk cloth either. That's lightweight and reasonably valuable, and they can use it to carry, we can buy a good chunk of it all at once with our crafts that we can make in this first season. Now, we kind of screwed up because we were so focused on getting underground, and I did it the slower way of building a hut, which is easier for a new player to understand. When we do the next fortress, we'll drop shoot that stuff straight into the basement and call it a day. So let's see, we got our metal bars, we got our cut gems. We don't really care about a lot of this finished goods. If we were in dire need of some of these things, we could order them, but for right now, I'm not really too worried. I do want to order a set of instruments, and the reason I want to do that is because that gets us a completed set we can throw into our tavern right off the bat, and instruments are reasonably valuable and fairly lightweight, so if we get a good collection of them from the trader, they can use them to buy all of our gleaming glass discs that we're going to use to buy them out next year. Let's put a big stockpile of drinks on hand. Doesn't hurt to have a lot of these brought in for us, so we don't have to produce them. I don't think we care about any of that stuff right now. No what I'm looking for, and I've missed it somewhere here, is powders. There they are. In the powders, there's a couple things that are worth mentioning specifically. Gypsum plaster and quicklime are worth ordering, simply because gypsum plaster can be hard to come by, and quicklime, it's easier just to have it on hand than to try to make it if you can do so. I don't bother with ordering dye, sugar, or flour because we can make those on site if we need to. At the end of the day, we're kind of building towards autarky. We want to be able to produce everything our fortress needs, and the only stuff we order in is simply so we're establishing a new industry. If fortresses didn't have to worry about frame rate, what would eventually happen in all of my fortresses is we'd have a room for every animal type where we were using it as a meat industry. You know, so we could produce bone of whatever type we needed on demand. The forges would simply be backed up by giant vaults full of bars of every type imaginable, solely so that my peasants could come along and make a metal item every now and again to satisfy their needs. So let's see. Not too worried about wood. Got a little bit on site. We don't really need a whole lot. Wouldn't hurt to have leather as well. I use the leather for cloaks and certain military items that can be made out of cloth or leather, so that we get the slightly, marginally, minimally better protection of the leather over the cloth. I honestly don't know, Photonumbra. I don't embark where there's a heavy aquifer. I consider heavy aquifers to be the devil. That's not really true. I suppose I could embark there, look at the wiki, figure out how to puncture a heavy aquifer and not mess with it. But I don't think it's that the aquifer freezes. I think it's the water that it produces. So what you end up wanting to do if you're trying to excavate a heavy aquifer via the freezing method is you strip mine the surface in a reverse pyramid shape. So your first floor is 10 squares wide, and your second floor is 8 squares wide, and your third floor is 6 squares wide. And what happens is, as you punch each floor one down below the next, the water flows in and freezes, preventing new water from flowing in. And then you can mine out the centerpiece and come back later to deal with the aquifer. Or wall it up and not worry about it after that. Build in a wall on the other side of the ice. As far as using trees and pumps to pump out a heavy aquifer, I bid you good luck. It's not something I've ever really wanted to mess with. If you're dead set that you must have a heavy aquifer, which you may want one for high-end power demanding applications, an aquifer can produce more power than just about anything else. I will probably, if we get into using power, demonstrate the Dwarven water reactor for new players, because it's not just easy to understand, it's easy to set up. And while there is a finite amount of power it can produce, and it does eat frame rate a little bit, it's very straightforward to get running. Okay, let's see. I don't think I need any of the rest of this stuff. Wouldn't hurt to bring some sand. Remember, sand comes with bags. It saves us from making them in early game phases. Cloth is going to be a little hard to come by. Cloth and leather can be a little hard to come by. This is another way to get them in the form of a bag, so I don't have to make the bags, basically. We're going to pay for it in full this time out, though. Once the caravans start arriving, you don't get that embark cost break that you did when we first embarked, where we only paid 1 point of embark points for a sand, and we got the bag for free. There's no more free bags. We're paying for the bag when we do it this way. But since we have sand on site, any sand we bring, those bags can just be converted right back into more sand bags once we get our glass industry up and running. And I think what I'm going to try to do long term, as tall as this fortress is see if we can't get ourselves a magma industry running a little higher. I'll have to run some mine carts eventually, is what we'll end up having to do. Just want to make a pass through here and make sure I'm not missing anything I really must have. The rest of the stuff I think we're going to end up making here very, very soon. Okay, looks good. Now let's see what they're wanting to buy from us. They really want helmets and shields. They'll pay for rings and cheese. Goblets. Bingo! There we go. That's mugs made out of glass, basically, and they're paying almost double for them. They're relatively easy to make. They don't require any finite resources. That's a good choice. They're also decent value. They can be decorated for more value if you need to sell them even higher. Now, we could do better than that still in terms of raw value. Our glass furnaces, which I need to get running here. Hang on a moment. Let's talk about that for a moment. And we'll just crank out 10 of those real fast just to give us some trade value. Let's go back and look at our depot again here. Oops. Still not quite done. What are we waiting on here, guys? Gotta move the boulders off site. Okay, they're cleaning the place up now to finish the construction. And he's finished his part. Now we just need our mason to come along and do his. Calling Mr. Mason. Mr. Mason, the depot needs you at the front desk. But for a new player, Photonumbra, heavy aquifers are just, it's not something I would recommend. You have to deal with it while your dwarves are exposed, potentially while you're not sure how to build anything. Alright, so now let's move some goods here. Let's see if we've got any of that glass stuff done yet. Probably not. Just one. Just one green glass disc. Okay, we can move one green glass disc, can't we, guys? We still need our broker, but that's okay. Let's get him assigned. Let's see who our good choice for broker was. I think it was our ceramics guy. Yeah, he's got all of our brokery skills. So when he's not making glass discs, we'll have him do our trading for us. The merchants should make their way here, but they're only going to be using their pack animals because we don't have a connection for their wagons to make the transit. Well, if you've never set up traps, we're going to do it. If you've never set up a military, we're going to do it. If you've never made an entrance with a drowning trap, we're going to do it.
Do it all.
Oh, that reminds me, Estacako. I still have to name a migrant after you. Hang on a minute. We did just get our wave of migrants. Now, we're probably not going to have enough time to do much beyond getting this entrance up and running. But I will probably... In fact, I'm going to do that now before I forget. I am going to keep this from being totally up and running. I will stop the actual connection to the surface. Oh, I didn't dig it. Good. See, I was already thinking ahead of myself. See how that works? Do this long enough, you start thinking about what you're going to do before you even do it. You are not confirmed not werebeast or vampire. I made no promises about werebeast and vampire status. If you want to make sure your dwarf isn't a werebeast or a vampire, you have to donate $25 to charity and get one of our starting 7. Otherwise, you take your chances. And make no mistake, this isn't one of those fancy fortresses where we try to keep werebeasts year-round, dealing with their month-long tantrum cycles. No, 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 no. Werebeasts get the bridge. We have no werebeasts yet. I need to put some chains up out front, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Kind of hoping we'll get this entrance done a little quicker, though. Need to get a water source up and running, too. We don't have one of those yet. Build us a temporary leatherworks here for a moment since we don't have our cloth and leather industry up and running. Hey man, there's still a chance. The bad news is, if I may paraphrase Dude, Where's My Car? The bad news is aquifer freezing is simple, but you got to remember, it's not the aquifer that freezes. It's not the damp stone that freezes. It's the water that pours out of it. So your first level, let's say, is just plain dirt with no aquifer. You dig an 11 by 11 square, right? Just strip mined right out of the surface. The next level down, you go 1 square inside that, because if it's damp, the water will be inside that. You follow me? And if you dig it straight down, your dwarves end up in the water and get frozen. That's bad. So what you're going to end up with is like an inverse step pyramid. If, for example, let's side view this for a moment. If your first level here was dirt, each level below it, you can punch through the aquifer a little less. Every time you dig this hole, this aquifer tile will flood this with water. Because it's open to the surface, because you dug this out originally, this water tile will freeze solid into ice, at which point you can build on the other side of that, and that water will never flood in. So from above, this looks like a set of smaller and smaller squares, or smaller and smaller circles, descending into the earth. The size you need for the largest one is determined by how large the connection you need and how deep the aquifer you have. So when you dig this out, you're actually going to dig now what'll pretend I haven't dug the bottom part down here, just this first layer, and we dug out 1 trench in a square. The aquifer will flood these tiles in a big square, so a big hollow square flooded. And then we're going to, once that's flooded, dig out the centerpiece, which could be a room if we wanted to, since it's open to the surface. With freezing, it wouldn't stop. The catch is if you want to be year-round, you then have to put a wall in where my X is, so that the water can't enter your fortress. And basically, you're sinking a caisson, like a hollow tube into the earth. And each level has to be a little smaller because you only have the room of the tube above it. It's not hard, but if you do it wrong, you can kill dwarves that way. Anything that's in water when it freezes is instantly and irrevocably slain. Lots of people lose adventurers, really powerful guys who can conquer the world and who've become vampires, or, who've taken on werebeasts and slaughtered titans. And they try to swim across the river, and it freezes in winter, and they die instantly. It's like the Dwarf Fortress Adventure version of dying on the toilet, right?
We're here to help.
Alright, and our 3rd migrant wave. Okay, not seeing anything spectacular here. Cheese makers, more fish cleaning. Some animal professions that I don't really care about a whole lot. Not much. So these guys are hauler core material for right now. We need to get stuff moved. And our primary group of dwarves here are crafts dwarves, meaning that while they can move things around on their own, I want them making things. I don't want them hauling stuff whenever possible. So for right now, we're going to have our haulers come in and start moving things around for us. Get all these bars moved downstairs into a stockpile that I haven't built yet and so forth. Okay, and our crafter is too busy making discs for trade to actually bother to show up and do the trading, which is kind of funny, but not going to work for us long term. So let's move his last few products in here. Turn off his glass making. And get his ass to the helicopter.
Sorry, sir, I can't do it.
Come on, guys. Oh, wait. Cannot reach site. Where are you that you cannot reach a site? What are you trying to build? Oh, he's complaining because he can't stay. Ah, okay. Now I can fix that, but it's a pain. One of the annoyances of building in small, tight corners, he's going to do it here, too. Maybe. Oh, he has nowhere to put the rock. That's the issue. Well, I can fix that. Couldn't figure out where to dump this rock, so he stopped building the chair. We'll mark that rock for dump and see if somebody doesn't come along and remove that problem for us. Okay, has our broker arrived yet? Oh, probably a good idea if we tell him he's needed. Damn it!
Good work.
Aha! The aquifer in our map is right here. Okay, so Z level -5. Okay. Now keep in mind we're dealing with a light aquifer here, not a heavy. A light aquifer is much more user-friendly. Taigas are technically supposed to be forested, but they are always below freezing. It may be the case that trees in Dwarf Fortress don't survive at those temperatures. You'd have to ask Toady. I've never really paid attention to taigas closely enough to monitor it. Might be an eccentricity of this version, for all I know. Alright, and he's off and running past the aquifer. Now, let's go back and look at our terrain here. And what we're going to do is we're going to mine out a space around our staircases and smooth all the stone. Well, see, I don't mind know if that's how it works or not, photo number. You'd really have to look. I just know that taigas are very cold. And if it's too cold, you're going to get tundra and not taiga. Not a lot of trees out there on tundra. So you might make sure that you're not embarking in an area that is, say, for example, adjacent to taiga. Did you guys actually mine out your ramps? You did. Okay, guys, go get some rock and put the ramps back. You've had your fun. And we have to put a wall in this space, otherwise our ramps won't work. Forgot about that part. A ramp adjacent to empty space cannot be ascended to the next level. No hollow ramps. Oh, that's a shame. We didn't get a trade. Actually, tell you what. They're dwarves. Frankly, we're building this fortress for them, so they owe us. See if we can get somebody to take the building down before they get their stuff packed. And if they don't get packed up fast enough, we get to keep. We'll pay for it in a smaller caravan next year. There we go. Blump, all that stuff is ours now. Let's make sure it gets into a... probably not super valuable stuff. Some meat, some cloth. Left us some iron armor. Nothing super valuable. Okay, good, good. You see, it's weird because I know that taking sand deserts for a moment, there used to be, and I'm just maybe not seeing them here. Hang on, let's designate some trees for cutting and see if I can catch them that way. Yeah, there's a handful of small cactus trees here in the desert, but the only thing I can think of photo number is it would be temperature sensitive, and that it might be temperature sensitive, and taiga would be right on the boundary of... Are these guys still fishing? Oh, it's the kids playing in the pond, waiting to fall in and die. Okay, never mind. Sorry. We probably need to get them indoors, but a few extra kids lost wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world. Now, this aquifer is a little more aggressive than most of the light aquifers I have seen. And we'll wall this in. This frothing water falling from the level above will actually give us happy thoughts any of the dwarves that run through it. Remind me when we start our next fort photo number, and I'll see if I can't catch us a taiga for it. We'll take a peek at one on stream. I've done glacier embarks before. Can't be any worse than that. Is this dummy now going to tell me he can't move diagonally? First dwarf ever who can't. Is that a rock or a dwarf? Oh, good. It's just a rock. Stupid bloodstone. Did this wrong. Gonna have to take out the outer walls first. That was silly. Get rid of these. There we go. Don't think they'll do it diagonally. If they come along and prove me wrong, I'll cancel the cancel. So here's the question. Is anybody already building on these? No and no. So they can't do it. Okay. Alright, now we're down to about our last 5 minutes for tonight, guys. I'm going to have enough time to basically set up our walling in of these entrance ramps. And not much more. So before I go tonight, does anybody have any questions over anything we've done? Anything you want to see down the road? Or things you may have tried? But we need to eventually get this walled in, although it's not technically critical before, because it's not going to flood our fortress. As you can see, this is trickling water, and it's slowly moving in, but it hasn't even gone down but one floor yet. The rest is just evaporating up so fast that it's not even going to flood. We could probably even not worry about it. I don't think this generates water fast enough to flood anything. We can actually take advantage of our light aquifer to produce water for our well and for our drowning trap, although it would take far too long to really fill our drowning trap with one. I think there's a way we can probably take advantage of it by punching some diagonal holes and using it as a collection basin. Once this is all walled back in with new material, it will no longer leak and we won't have the problem anymore.
No.
Holy cow, I've let them run out of booze. That's not going to work. Plenty of plants, just need to get them brewing. We should have empty barrels. Make sure our cook is doing cook things here. All right. So we've got our You could probably use the same method to dig through a light aquifer that you would for a heavy, exposing each layer to the surface and waiting for it to fill with enough water to freeze. But remember, light aquifers tend to leak and dribble instead of gush, and so you would wait longer for the water to fill up the trenches to be frozen with a light aquifer than you would with a heavy. Okay, let me make a couple notes here for myself. Tomorrow we need to set up a proper temple. We need to set up a proper dormitory hospital. We need to set up our well, which we'll use for an aquifer to fill. At that point, we should be most of the way to self-sufficient. Not necessarily where we want to be, but surviving instead of just getting by. Okay, guys, before I go, last chance. Any questions? Alright, then with that, I am going to call it an evening. I will see you all tomorrow. The schedule is below the stream. I expect to be back tomorrow around 4 p.m. And we'll run for about 4 hours tomorrow, it looks like, to make up for the short session tonight. And on that note, folks, I will bid you adieu. Anybody else streaming Dwarf Fortress out there I should be raiding at the moment? Looks like Bearded Turtle Gaming is trying Dwarf Fortress, they say, for the first time on their first playthrough. Let's set them up for this. See if they're set up to allow this. Give me a second here. Assuming, of course, my APIs will play along. Now I have to make sure I spell it right, because I wasn't smart enough to cut and paste. See how that works, kids? This guy says it's his first playthrough. Go gentle on him, my followers. Be gentle. And with that, we'll call it an evening. Thank you, boys and girls. We are out. Have fun.